Okay, perfect. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this Open Source Solutions and Commvault Active Directory webinar. So in today's session, we're going to have two different speakers. One of them is Roland Wenzl from the Open Source Solutions team. He's our Senior Manager of Solutions Enablement and Integration. And then we'll also have Bryon Spaeth, Technical Solutions Architect from the Commvault and Aero teams. So just a few things before we start this session. So first of all, if you have any questions or comments, just make sure that you leave them on the chat at the end of the session. If we have some time left, we'll just like address those questions to you guys. Now we also have an incentive, that just to make you guys like stay until the end of the session, and so you guys are like super connected to the webinar. We're going to be offering a prize to the person that responds the question that we have at the end of the webinar. So Bryon is going to be asking the question. Whoever has the response, just like put it on the chat, and then we'll just like coordinate everything with that person to deliver the gift that we have for them. So that said, we'll just like to start this session. We're going to be starting with Roland Wenzl and the webinar introduction. So Roland, the floor is yours.
Thank you for everyone for joining. My name is Roland Wenzl. I'm Senior Manager of Solutions Enablement here at Open Source Solutions, and we're going to be talking a little bit about Active Directory. But just for some housekeeping first, and give you a little bit about who we are as a company. So next slide. So Open Source Solutions, we've been in business for 49 years. That's quite a long time. In that time, we've seen quite a few changes in that 49 years. Of course, we've evolved with those changes, and we feel that we are now focused on cyber resilience and what the actual industry needs. Next slide. So we have a global footprint here. Primarily, we have a lot of locations across Canada, so from coast to coast, from Vancouver all the way to St. John's. Our headquarters are in Canada, but we also have locations and staff that are working around the globe. Next slide. So what do we provide? Well, we have a bunch of services. We have the agnostic cloud solutions, cyber recovery, modern infrastructure solutions, professional services, unified backup protection, and comprehensive data storage. A little bit of detail on some of these in the next slide. So what's cyber recovery? What do we do with that? Well, cyber incidents is now becoming a very big thing in the marketplace right now. There's probably no one in the room here that probably hasn't at least known of or heard of somebody that's been affected by some type of cyber incidents. So here at Open Source Solutions, of course, we can do cyber recovery testing. We provide multi-platform support for rapid and reliable recovery, DR as a service, SLA security compliance, and full stack responsibility. So anything from secure, protect, detect, recover. Next slide. Needless to say, a lot of this is through our professional services department. And here we can do things like customized health check or get a second opinion. You might have already had a first opinion from somebody else. Maybe we can validate if that is good, or we can find some other solutions for you. We can do solution enablement education, some tailored hands-on workshops, quick start enablement for rapid deployment, and we also have customer success experience and training. Next slide. Unified backup protection. So everyone should, of course, know about the 3-2-1 data backup plan. We do multi-platform support, end-to-end encryption, smart data services, and of course, cyber resiliency and protection and planning. Intelligent data services, hybrid multi-cloud support, autonomous discovery, flash speed restore, and this is with Commvault and any other solution that would be best tailored for your situation. Next slide. So some ongoing services that we can also provide is engage with a service contract. We can do some customizable levels of managed and augmented technology support. Introduction to some resource and support tools, processes and support integration, customer success, experience and training again, some custom ongoing resources, and some flexible service term options. Next slide. So really, this whole webinar is in regards to Active Directory. And, let's be honest, Active Directory backups protect the identity backbone of an entire organization. If you have a good Active Directory backup, the number one position for it is that it ensures business continuity during failures, disasters, cyber attacks. Number two would be maybe rollback for migration, a schema change, or some operational errors. But it could also be there to prevent catastrophic outages that disrupt authentication and critical services, or support compliance, audits, and legal requirements. But everyone, because of this, hopefully everyone ensures that they have a good, reliable AD backup. But just as critical is going to be the restore process. And with the restore process, if you do this manually, you have your backup, but to restore manually an Active Directory forest, there's anywhere between 50 to 100 steps and can take an extended period of time. 2 to 3 days to restore the AD, another 1 to 2 weeks to re-enable all those services that may have been involved. Me personally, I've been involved or witnessed, I guess, a number of forest recovery events. Of those, all manual recovery, the best was 48 hours. Worst was about 5 days. The best, that was just for the forest itself. Adding and getting all of the bugs out could be anywhere from 2 to 3 days to a couple of weeks after that. So needless to say, backup is great. Restore is not necessarily the best. So what would you say that with the right software, you can actually do a complete forest recovery within 4 hours? That's what we're talking about here with Commvault. So at this point, I would like to pass the presentation on to Bryon to talk to you about the Commvault solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Roland, for the introduction, and thank you for the information about his experience with Active Directory and restoring those forests. So we will get into our presentation. So next slide, please. So just in case you're not familiar with Commvault, I figured I'd have one slide about who Commvault is. We've been around for 25 years. The last 14 years, we've been in the Gartner MQ for enterprise backup and recovery, and over 1,500 patents. Commvault's always trying to look to innovate and make our software relevant for today's market, not just staying in what was successful, but finding new ways to be successful and finding new ways to help our customers be cyber resilient. And the last thing on this slide I would say is we were one of the first vendors to offer something called clean room recovery. And what this is, it's an isolated recovery environment that we build in your cloud tenant, whether it's in Azure or AWS, allowing you to do testing, or even if you have to ransomware recovery in the time of an emergency where you need to recover to those resources. Next slide, please. So why are we talking about Active Directory? Roland kind of hit on it already. It's important. It's the top target for attackers. You can see here that they estimate about 610 plus million enterprise users are still using Active Directory. When cloud came out, and cloud is still out, and as popular as cloud is, one of the interesting things is they thought that Active Directory would go away because of it, but what we found that it's still out and people are using it constantly. And if you look at the new Server 2025 edition from Windows and from Microsoft, it still has enhancements into Active Directory. So it's not going away anytime soon. 9 out of 10 cyber attacks are going after Active Directory. And why do they go after Active Directory? It's because it controls the crown jewels of your business usually. It's where your mission critical applications are usually controlled. It allows you access to those mission critical applications. So obviously, attackers are going to go after that because that is a prime target for them. And then, as Roland talked about too, the other thing with Active Directory is it is a complex multi-step process just to bring back one domain controller, let alone an entire forest. If you truly have to restore multiple domain controllers, it can take a bit of time. Next slide, please. So what is Active Directory? I'm sure you kind of all know about it, but my easiest way that I explain it is it's a hotel key card system for a hotel. You have your front desk, they control access to the keys. When you come in as a user, you get your key, you get access to your room, the business center, fitness center, maybe the pool. And then when you leave, they take your keys and you no longer have access to it. It's exactly what Active Directory does for environments, but it gives you access to your files, to your endpoints, applications, databases, and even with Entra ID, it can authenticate through that. For example, with where I work, my laptop, I authenticate through Active Directory, and also with my M365 is authenticated through Active Directory too. So everything I do with my job tends to be authenticated through Active Directory. So it's important for me. Next slide, please. Okay, the spread. So you can hit the so the bad actor, what is this, or what are we talking about? If you can imagine yourself, you're sitting on an airplane, you're either going for vacation, maybe you're coming back for business, something. You're on the airplane, you're on the bus, the subway, the tram, whatever it is, and you're sitting there and you hear the person next to you or behind you cough, and you're like, oh no, I'm gonna get sick. Next slide, or next. Okay, so you got something, you go home, you take it to your family. Next. Maybe you go to the gym, you work out, you go and watch a show, you're hanging out with your buddies. Next slide. And then you go to work and you spread it amongst everybody at work. And then the next, please. So why am I talking about this? It's because of a feature in Active Directory which is really amazing. It's called Active Directory Replication. It is turned on automatically, and what it gives you is the chance to make one change on one domain controller, and that change is then replicated amongst all the other domain controllers within the environment. It is an awesome tool when it comes to environments where they have multiple domain controllers and they are changing things for individuals or group policies or whatever it may be. It makes it a lot easier for them to manage their Active Directory environment. But with the same way, the benefit of it can also be a con, because regardless of who makes the change, or even if the change is accidental, maybe there's something wrong with the script they ran, something, this change still gets replicated amongst all the domain controllers within the environment. So which could then have some sort of damage to our environment if the change was malicious or it was configured wrong, the script was wrong. We put in a group policy without actually testing it. There's a lot of things that could create chaos in our environment. Next slide, please. So with all that being said, with that replication, with the benefits of it, but also the negative effects of it, what happens if your AD in your company is not accessible? Do you have a plan B? Do you know what's going to happen? Do you know how to recover it? Do you know what your plan B is? You can hit the next. Some statistics that are out there from Microsoft is they say 50% of Active Directory attacks or 50% of organizations, experience Active Directory attacks in the last 2 years. So it's something that attackers are looking to target. You can hit the next one, please. Here we see that 80% of human-operated cyber attacks are going after the domain controllers. They know that that is a weak spot within the system. That's what they're going to target. They're going to find out ways to get into that domain controller. Next one, please. And you see 35% here. It says the domain controller serves as the primary system used to distribute that ransomware across the network. Again, if we think back to that slide about the spread, if we put something into one domain controller, it gets replicated amongst our network, amongst all of our Active Directory domain controllers. And then next slide. Microsoft has observed that 78% of attacks, threat actors have successfully breached the domain controller. They know what they're doing and they know what they're going after. So again, I asked the question, do you have a plan B if your AD is not accessible? We can go to the next slide, please. So Active Directory in the crosshairs, we kind of talked about this already, but just to think about it in a different way, what happens is somebody gains control of Active Directory, right? And most of the time it's a misconfiguration that's built in, not either built in when somebody was configuring it, they didn't know about to change something. It's blind spots that with the way they've set up. Maybe it's accounts that have been left open unintentionally. Either way, they find a way to get into the environment. And then once they're in, they go ahead and they elevate their privileges. They make themselves more important. They give themselves, admin rights. Once they have admin rights, they have the keys to the kingdom, right? They can go wherever they want. An Active Directory doesn't care because it says, hey, you have the rights. Here are the keys. Go and enjoy everything you want, which is tough because then they just sit in your network. They just sit in your environment and they check everything out. They look to see what Active Directory controls. They look to see where your customer data is. They look to understand what databases or what applications you're using so they can do their data mining, their seeking of information on your company. And then when they're ready, when they have everything set in place, then they execute the attack, they drop the bomb or whatever you want to say, and they disconnect your Active Directory. Active Directory comes completely down. Maybe if you're authenticating your backups through Active Directory, now they go ahead and delete all your backups too. So what happens then? You have no backups. Active Directory is down. If Active Directory allowed you to get into your physical building, you might not be able to get into the physical building. There's so many things that could happen when Active Directory goes completely down. So you can go to the next slide, please. So even some other scenarios with it, maybe it's the simple things. It's an individual made a mistake and they deleted somebody's account on accident. It's the CFOs and now he can't access those financial reports he needs. What do you do to restore that? Commvault will help you. We have a way to restore those things. It's a scripting gone wrong. You hired a new admin. The admin's tired. They want to take the simple way of using ChatGPT or GitHub. They pull a script down from there. They look at it. Oh, it looks great, and they push it out. Or maybe it's something simple like they're updating a group policy and they didn't take the time to test it. They're just like, hey, we're just going to push this out. We know it's good. What happens then? You need to figure out everything that was changed because of that change. Commvault, we can help you with we can help you with that too. And then the GPO manipulation impacts security. Maybe somebody gets into your environment. Maybe it's a malicious insider or it's external, but either way they're in. They decide to change, how you allow your passwords to work within your, a group policy. They make it so your passwords are easier, or you don't have to change them. If you guess the wrong password twice, you don't get locked out. Just all those scenarios, they make it easier. Well, how do you recover from that? How do you restore it back if you don't necessarily know what's changed? With Commvault, again, we can help you with that. And then ransomware strikes, we've already talked about this one on the last slide. We know the devastation that can happen if they get in, if they can get access to the keys of the kingdom. But what we can do too is we can help with that forest level recovery. We can automate that process to help it become faster and make it easier on you and your business. We can go to the next slide, please. So I leave this one, or I put this one in here just because of the shared responsibility model, just to make sure that everyone knows that, hey, when you bring data When you're using the cloud, it is your responsibility to protect not only your data, but also your accounts and identities. So if you're using Entra ID within Azure, for example, are you protecting that data that is your Entra ID? Just making sure you have a backup plan for that too. You can go to the next slide. So what does Commvault give you? We talked about all the bad things. We know there can be lots of issues with Active Directory, but what does it give you? How can we help? How can Commvault and OSS actually help you with this? Well, part of it is if we look at our base product that's called just Active Directory, and with this, we give you granular recovery. So what is that going to help us with, Bryon? That's going to help you with those simple things like, hey, somebody deleted a user and it shouldn't have happened. Or maybe it was a situation where a script was ran and there was something misconfigured within the script and it ended up messing up a bunch of features within, or half of your team no longer has network access. Or it could also be the group policy. They went to go change a group policy, they initiated it without doing any kind of testing, and now everything is wrong. But either way, what we do and what we allow you to do is Commvault will take a look at your production data and we can take a look at your last backup. So maybe the event happened, Saturday night, everybody came in on Monday, nobody has access. Great. Let's look at what's changed. We can look at what's the production data and we go back to the last backup. Maybe that was ran on Friday. And we see, oh, here are all the things that were changed on accident. You can go ahead and roll all of those changes back. You can see what was changed and who made the change, and then you can go and restore all of those things back to the way they were. You can do that either the whole list, or maybe some of those changes were actually done and they're correct and we don't need to change them back. So we just need to change certain aspects about it. But Commvault gives you the ability to do that. We not only give you the ability to look between two backups, or between the backup and the production data, but we'll also give you the ability to look between two backups too. The one thing to mention about granular recovery is this is a manual process. So it is something that the admin's going to go in, they're going to check things out, they're going to choose to restore those individual aspects of it. So the next product we get into, it's called our Enterprise Edition. And the Enterprise Edition gives us two distinct features. It gives us disaster recovery and the forest level recovery, or forest recovery. So disaster recovery, why are we talking about that? The big advantage here is it allows you to orchestrate a recovery from one data center to cloud or to a secondary center. It makes it easier for you to recover in case of a disaster, something large. The whole place, the fire suppression system failed and now everything's flooded. We need to fail over to the cloud or a different center. That's what the disaster recovery does, but it also gives you a way to test. You can test your recovery of your Active Directory into a hopefully non-production environment, non-production network, and see how everything's working, to understand what the steps are to take so you know what it's going to take to restore those Active Directory domain controllers. And then forest level recovery. We're going to help to restore all of those domain controllers within your environment. We're going to help with runbooks. We're going to give you insight into how your topology is so you can see it. We can go to the next slide here. So forest level recovery, as Roland already talked about it, he talked about how complex it is and how many steps it takes and what his experience is. So I was talking to a gentleman who works for Commvault. He's a sales engineer that's worked for Commvault. He's worked for Commvault for just a couple of years, but has worked with Active Directory for about 25 years. So most of the time Active Directory's been out. A customer came to them and they said they had a ransomware attack and they lost 8 domain controllers. And for those 8 domain controllers, they had to manually rebuild them with these 50 to 100 steps, whatever it might have taken. And it took them about 22 hours for them to restore this data. And that's just like Roland said, that's just to bring back the domain controllers. What about finding any bugs or taking care of anything else? It was just 22 hours for that. So the sales engineer, they wanted to do a POC. He set up the POC. He got 8 domain controllers, and he took them through the force level recovery that's available through Commvault. Granted, this sales engineer had been working with Active Directory, so he knows the ins and outs, and he really understands the product, and he also understands Commvault. He was able to get the recovery done in 2 hours because he said he was pushing it to its max. Okay, let's say everybody is not him. So let's say it takes 3 hours. But the difference between recovering 22 hours versus 3 hours is a 19-hour difference. So if you have 19 more hours to bring up applications, to look to see if there's any bugs that you might need to fix, to even just starting to bring up your application, how much more is that going to help you with your recovery to get your business, your mission critical applications back up and running? We can go to the next slide. So the other thing we help you with is we'll give you this topology view of all your domain controllers within your environment. And what that really helps you to understand is exactly which one do I need to restore, where my mission critical applications are at. You can pick the individual one that's tied to your mission critical applications. You can do that one first, and then you can start to restore the other ones in the order that you choose. We're not forcing you to any order. We allow you to choose which ones you want to restore, which makes the most sense for your business and what you want to do. The other thing that we do is we're going to create an auto-generated run book that's going to build out all of those steps that Roland talked about. You know, those 50 to 100 plus steps, depending on how complex things are. We're going to build that run book for you. And then once it's built, we'll start to automate the process. But the admin who's controlling it, they have the ability to figure out, hey, do I want Commvault to run these steps automatically? Or would it be better for myself to actually run these manually? We give you complete control to choose which ones you want to start manually or which ones you want automatic. If you want everything automatic, great. If you want certain ones manually, if you want just a substep of one step manually, great. We give you that flexibility. Then the other thing it helps with is just an understanding of how the process is going. You can see which steps have completed, which ones haven't, just so you can then report to those in your business who need to know. Maybe it's the CEO or the CIO, the CISO of your company. You can report to them, hey, it looks like it's going to take us X amount of time to restore these last 3 domain controllers, but giving them an idea of when we can start to get our business back up and running and get those applications going again so we can continue our business. Next slide, please. So this coming to kind of some of my last slides, and I know we're getting up on time, but with Commvault, we have Active Directory resilience, but we also have a lot of other workloads that we can protect. So as you're working with the OSS team, as you're talking to them about the cyber recovery plans that they offer, or just in general cyber recovery, and you're looking for a solution for Active Directory, Commvault, can help you with that. But maybe you're looking to add additional solutions on. You need, help with cloud workloads, endpoints, SaaS apps. I'm not going to read these. You guys can look over this. But it gives you the opportunity to build not only your cyber recovery with just one tool, hopefully it gives you the ability to build that cyber recovery, with just one tool. We can bring all your workloads under Commvault and make it as easy as possible for you to bring back those workloads and to be confident in your cyber recovery journey. We can go to the next slide. I have just some questions laid out. I won't read them, but just kind of things to think about. It's, since we talked about Active Directory is a target, do you know how long have you tested it? Do you understand how long it would take you to recover your Active Directory environment? Or if you have a forest, do you understand how long it would take to recover that? What about the ideas of, have you really truly been able to test your Active Directory recovery plans? We can go to the next slide. And some of the things here is just does your current set of tools, that you're using right now, does it allow you to recover Active Directory? And then if it doesn't, what would be the value of maybe putting all those tools under Commvault so you could have that one pane of glass to restore all of the components within your environment? And then the last slide, I just have some additional resources. You guys can feel free to look at them. The Active Directory backup and recovery is just more additional information about what we do with our product. The cyber recovery assessment is assessment that talks about things to think about with your cyber recovery assessment. And then the last slide, I think, is our question.
Correct.
Okay. So as Viviana talked about in the beginning, we have a question for you. So whoever is the first one to respond in the chat will get an opportunity to win the gift. And the question is, which version of Commvault Active Directory provides forest level recovery? And somebody was very fast. And I think that is it for the webinar. Our last slide is just a thank you. So I will end my part of the presentation.
So did someone already respond to the question?
Yeah, I just saw it pop up as I was actually reading it.
Oh, really? Okay, that's good. Perfect. Cool. Okay, so I'll just stop sharing my screen. Bryon and Roland, I'm not really sure. Okay, yeah, so I saw someone was very quick there. Cool. So I don't know if anyone has any questions. Maybe I'm not really sure if I can see the chat, Bryon. But yeah, I think we have a few minutes left. So if there are any questions, I don't know if someone would like to type a question on the chat. That maybe we can respond to that. So let me see. Let's see if we get something here.
I have one little statement, I guess, kind of like a food for thought question. If you have a catastrophic event and where you're going to have to need to do a complete DR solution restore, if it takes you 48 hours to restore your Active Directory and then another 2 or 3 days to get all of the bugs out, how long is it going to take you to recover the rest of your environment? Because you can't start that recovery until your Active Directory is up and running. So you're already potentially a week out just because of Active Directory. But if you can recover your Active Directory within 4 hours, you can start doing the rest of the environment after that 4-hour time interval. So just food for thought.
Yeah, thanks for that, Roland. Okay, perfect. So let me check if we end up getting any questions over here. I don't think so. We have a couple of questions, but just like those will be addressed by the marketing team, just so we can share with everyone the recording, and so it's available for everyone to just go through and explore, especially the additional resources, Bryon, that you included in your presentation. We're just going to make sure that everyone can access that information. So yeah, I would say that said, we can just give people a few just minutes back. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining this webinar. We really hope this session was valuable for you. And then yeah, we'll be in touch with the recording, the additional resources, and then we'll be in touch as well with the person who responded to the question, so we can coordinate the prize that he won. So yeah, thank you so much, Bryon, Roland as well, and everyone who joined the webinar. Have a great afternoon, and yeah, that was it. Thank you so much.